like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and afterwards I'd ask you to remain standing. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, will you stand?
I wanted to ask you to stand to have a moment of silence for Joseph Franklin, who's a retired lieutenant from the Roxbury Police Department. He had 25 years of service in that department, and he was on the Police Unity Tour, the bike tour, that honors those who have fallen in service, and as well to raise funds for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and Museum. And unfortunately, Officer Franklin was in a bicycle accident on this tour, and he succumbed to those injuries. So if you would, please, a moment of silence in this moment. Thank you.
Yes. There's oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, we have minutes to approve. Unless there's any objection from the council, I'd like to take them all at once. If you have any comments on any of them, please give them to us now. Doesn't seem there are any comments. So we're talking about the executive minutes of April 25th, the regular minutes of April 25th, the executive minutes of May 9th, and the regular minutes of May 9th. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
move them.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Okay. I should go down.
Yeah, that's because it's the new sounds.
Where is it?
Right under here, yeah.
I have a proclamation to read. Some ways it's session. By the way, I want to tell you all I feel very safe. This is a Borough Proclamation, National Gun Violence Awareness Day, which will be June 2nd. Whereas every day 91 Americans are killed by gun violence and countless others are injured, and whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be murdered with guns than people in other developed countries, and whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is the highest responsibility of mayors, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people, and whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe, and whereas June 2nd, 2016, would have been the 19th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. And whereas to help honor Hadia and the 91 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 2nd, 2016 as the second annual National Gun Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose the color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters and out in the woods, and orange is the color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence, pledge to do all we can keep firearms out of the wrong hands, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 2nd to help raise awareness about gun violence and to honor the lives and lost potential of Americans stolen by gun violence. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Robert H. Connolly, Mayor of the Borough of Madison, and on behalf of this governing body, do hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2016 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day and encourage all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human life. Next, we have a bit of business to deal with. We have a couple of resolutions. We have Resolution 167-2013 and 168-2013.
Should be 2016.
I'll read by the title? Yes.
Yeah,
Let me read the
let's,
title.
ask her to read by title, and then we'll move and vote.
Resolution 167, 2016, resolution of the Borough of Madison authorizing appointment of Acting Lieutenant Joseph M. Longo, it's Sergeant Joseph Longo, as Lieutenant in the Madison Police Department effective May 23, 2016. And Resolution 168, 2016 is a resolution of the Borough of Madison authorizing the appointment of Acting Lieutenant John R. Misha as Lieutenant in the Madison Police Department effective May 23, 2016.
I'll move them.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I want to ask about it. Okay. Now we get to make this official. So I'd like to invite up soon-to-be Lieutenant John Bishop, his wife Cara, and the children Michael and Gabrielle. His daughter is sleeping. She would have liked to make Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Before we do that, I'm going to do a slight shorten. Born and raised in Madison, John is a second-generation Madison police officer. A graduate of Madison High School, John started his career with the Bedminster Township Police Department in 2001 after graduating the Somerset County Police Academy, #1 in his class. He is a graduate of Fairleigh Dickinson University with a master's degree in public administration. Lieutenant Misha will be in charge of the Patrol Division and Internal Affairs Unit. Carmela, would you
Yeah, okay.
Here's the Bible.
And the
And then if you would come around.
chief had it.
Excuse me. All right, we're all set. Good. So please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Misha,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of Lieutenant in the Madison Police Department
all the duties of Lieutenant in the Madison Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Oh, nice.
I would now like to call up Sergeant Joseph Longo and, well, his wife Cynthia and his children, Sophia. Emma couldn't make it. Right? I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Joe before we do swearing in. He was raised in Harding Township. His high school friends with John Mitchell. Right there. When they both graduated high school together. Prior to his appointment as a Madison police officer, Joe served as a career firefighter with the Madison Fire Department, where he still serves as a member today. A graduate of the Morris County Public Safety Training Academy, Lieutenant Longo will be in charge of Support Services Division and Traffic Safety Unit.
I, Joseph Longo,
Do solemnly swear
that
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of lieutenant in the Madison Police Department
all the duties of lieutenant in the Madison Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Now that I've had the opportunity to read the oath to among our two most senior police officers, now we'd like to introduce you and swear in to our newest police officers. I would like to call up Patrolman Ryan Dunn, his mother Susan Dunn, and his girlfriend Alexandria, and his father Kevin Dunn.
Ben has to still sign those.
I, please state your name,
I, Ryan Dunn,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of police officer for the Borough of Madison,
all the duties of police officer for Madison,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly swear
I further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You're official.
I would now like to call up Patrolman. I would like to now call up Patrolman Travis Daniel, his mother Glenda Daniel, and his father Scott Daniel. Please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Travis Daniel,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of police officer
all the duties of police officer
for the Borough of Madison,
for the Borough of Madison,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I further solemnly
I
swear
further solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Very much. Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you. Here's the badge for tonight.
So this is welcome to Madison. Go by himself. Say it's no fun.
Okay, it is.
Kind of good there, sitting by himself.
This was a wonderful opportunity to be mayor. That was terrific. Thank you all.
Everybody clear out?
Yeah, I'm sure you would all like to stay for the rest of the meeting. But in case you want to leave, this would be the right time to do it.
Good job.
Very well, yes.
Good. So
Very good. So far, so good. Now we'll go to reports.
Right? Are we happy?
Exactly. You gotta commit a crime somewhere.
Prompt is here, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, you know.
After the minutes.
But on the other side of town, right? Not around here.
okay,
And then your prompt
And then I-
discussion.
That's SOP.
and it's only for the agenda items.
Right, or anything else on the
I thought the mayor.
How many firemen are auxiliary police? It's amazing how many
firemen are auxiliary policemen? I mean, how many
Well, there we have the hearing.
volunteer firemen, right? Great. Good night.
If you want to group them,
It's pretty similar, yeah.
The sweetest thing on the face of the earth.
Joseph Bank. Nice.
right,
You know personally.
anything, right, engineer also says that anything on this.
What do you say? Parrot down.
No one's, there's nothing on
Was
right? Let's see if there's anything.
Yeah, I don't always. I have shirts with buttons, but you know.
that's something you never forget.
Well, with suits, always. Always. Just. Oh, God. It's not so long. It's quick.
Yeah.
Nobody's left. Everybody's gone.
The true.
Everybody's gone. Everybody's gone.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have orientation over the summer? Out there in Indiana?
He's going out.
I know. There you go.
Meeting, like a mandatory meeting with your advisor,
Yeah.
stars or something. And then they have boiler gold rush.
You know, it's interesting.
He's going up. Oregon doesn't start till September 21st. He's going out August 4th or 5th. They're trimesters. They're over middle of end of June.
They start late, and the first trimester ends at Christmas, which is nice.
Big event.
Yes. Right, exactly.
Exams right after
Right.
break.
Then there's two trimesters. They end like June 15th, something like that, June 18th. So, but it's nice. He's got a job already. Because if he wants to stay out there for the summer. Yeah. We'll see. How close is it? The sergeant's thing.
I thought
Like for the voting. For the voting.
hire somebody, or is it these two guys?
Really, what's
I'd do the right thing.
What? I don't think we could do that until he pleads guilty. But they already have somebody going to school to take over what he was doing.
It's foolish not to. You can sell or rent that as
But I don't think that they're, with these two higher, they're up to their third one yet. Pretty sure.
And then 31 before dispatchers?
Hi, Louise.
Are you staying or are you going? Yeah, I have them all up.
Oh, we still have to have a meeting, Louise. Everybody just left. We still have a meeting. Yeah. Yeah. We thought we were finished. That would be nice.
Okay.
We didn't spend all your money yet.
I never looked it up.
great things. Great.
Okay. Now,
Can I be heard over? Can I be heard okay? Thank you. Okay. We'll now continue the meeting. It's time for the reports from committees. And generally, I go first with utilities, and I'll go first with utilities. The electric department transferred a pole at North Oak Court and installed another new pole. They installed 3 new poles at Hillview Avenue, Parkside Avenue, and Longview Avenue, and Sherwood Avenue. They also installed anchored and downguide at John Avenue, and they continued new construction on a primary feeder on Britton Street. They also had some streetlight repairs, service upgrades, and mark-out requests. The water department had 83 requests for locating and marking underground utilities for shade tree plantings. 3 curb boxes were checked and water was turned off and on for inside plumbing repairs. 3 outside registers for water meters were repaired or replaced. They helped the engineering department with locating lines at the library. They met with state officials on an annual housekeeping inspection of our facilities. They met with officials on the KRE project to see if water main needs relocation. And they installed new water mains and hydrants on Cottage Place, West, and Kinney Streets where there were no existing lines or fire protection. They also met with Nebula Systems. They run the software that controls our wells and tanks, and we've been looking to upgrade that system, and that was the purpose of the meeting. Councilman Ladrigan is not feeling well, and as his backup, I'd like to give you the report as well from Finance and the Clerk's office. From Finance, a draft audit has been completed by Nisavacia. The Audit Committee and Administration will be reviewing the document and meeting later in the month to discuss. The annual tax sale will be happening earlier this year, towards the end of September. Residents and property owners are reminded that any 2015 tax or utility bill must be paid off by August in order to avoid having your name in the newspaper. Please visit the tax collection office if you have questions. I want to offer a quick healing to Donna Carey of the Utility Building Department, who's out on medical leave. And kudos to Magliano Martirano and Frank Piccolo for getting the work done while the department is down in person. The Edmunds financial software package that's used to process all purchasing was updated this past week. Many thanks to the staff who worked on this, including Linda Sawyer, for making this happen. And finally, from the clerk's office, a reminder, June 7th is the primary election. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Residents should look for their sample ballots in the mail next week. They were mailed out on June 1st. Thank you. Councilman Caninello, Health.
Thank you very much, Council President. The Madison Health Department held 2 food handlers courses today for schools and other area restaurants. The goal of the course is to ultimately protect citizens from contracting and transmitting foodborne illnesses and to educate food service operators and consumers about safe food handling practices. For questions or to participate in a future course, please contact the Madison Health Department. Madison Health Department invites residents 55 years and older and community partners from Madison, Chatham Borough, and Chatham Township to attend the Tri-Town 55 Plus Coalition's Community Forum to discuss findings from the Needs Assessment Survey and focus groups. These findings will be used to create an action plan to improve the age friendliness of the 3 communities. 2 community forums will be held to share needs assessment results. The first will be held on Wednesday, May 25th from 6 till 8 p.m. at Gloria Day Lutheran Church in Chatham. Another event covering the same content will be held on Tuesday, June 7th, Election Day, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Madison Community House. Individuals may attend one or the other. The event is free and dinner will be served. Attendees are encouraged to RSVP to the event. They can do so by contacting the Health Department 973-593-3079, extension 6. Transportation to and from the event will be provided for Madison residents who cannot drive. You can reserve a seat by calling the Madison Senior Center at 973-593-3094. And there are a few upcoming screenings. The Madison Health Department is gearing up for their springtime screenings, and they are as follows. Men's cancer screening, Monday, June 6th from 6 to 8. Registration is open now and required through the Madison Health Department. And then the Comprehensive Metabolic Profile, CMP, fasting blood analysis will be held on June 8th, Wednesday, from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Registration is open now and required through the Madison Health Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilwoman Vitale.
Thank you. On May 9, 2016, Acting Lieutenant at that time, but now we could call him Lieutenant John Misha, and Patrolman Stephanie Carrao and Senior Dispatcher John Rafter were honored as Employees of the Month for May 2016. They acted as a team and were instrumental in helping a suicidal caller who phoned the Madison, New Jersey Police instead of the Madison, Connecticut Police. Keeping the caller on the phone for nearly 2 hours, they were able to acquire her exact location, which she was reluctant to provide. The proper authority was contacted and ultimately brought the patient for treatment. So congratulations to those three. On May 16th, Madison Police intern Patrick Brown started his internship with the police department for his second year in a row. So we welcome back Pat and we say thank you for helping us out for this summer. In the past month, Madison Police Department has received multiple calls and reports of individuals being targeted in an ongoing Irs phone scam. In most cases, the caller is advising victims that either there is a warrant for their arrest or failure to pay the owed amount will result in their arrest. The callers can be very aggressive, and in the most recent incidents, they are demanding payment in iTunes cards. According to the IRS, they will never call to demand immediate payment. They never demand that you pay taxes without giving you the opportunity to question or appeal the amount. They never require you to use a specific payment method for your taxes. Never ask for credit or debit card numbers over the phone, and never threaten to bring in local police or other law enforcement groups to have you arrested for not paying. If you get a suspicious phone call, one way to handle it is not hand over information right away. Hang up and call the IRS directly, which is 800-829-1040. Of course, if you have any questions regarding a scam, you could always call the police department at 973-593-3000. I brought with me today, and I'm going to hold this up so everybody at home can see this. There's a couple of booklets over here, and it's called Taking Charge, What to Do If Your Identity is Stolen, and there's lots of good information in here. Detective Kozakowski put this all together, especially, and I have some for you for seniors. The seniors have been targeted, especially, and we have a couple of seniors that have lost a tremendous amount of money. So, if you're interested in any of these new scams, please take one of those books. Also, from the fire department, today, May 23rd, 2016, the Madison Fire Department is celebrating its 135th anniversary. It was on this day in 1881, the O'Brien's Hall on Waverly Place, that the Madison Hook and Ladder Company No. 1 was duly incorporated for the purposes of protecting life and property from fire in the then village of Madison. Also, 3 firefighters completed a 2-weekend, 24-hour vehicle rescue class in the use of hydraulic tools. This was given at the Morris County Fire Academy. 6 firefighters completed a Saturday 8-hour class entitled Bread and Butter Tactics Hand-On Training. This was hosted at the Roseland Fire Department. Firefighters were challenged to perform and sharpen their skills in primary search, roof ventilation, forcible entry, and getting the first hose in place. On Friday, May 20th, 10 Madison High School students came to fire headquarters and spent 5 hours with the Madison firefighters. This was part of the Madison High School Day of Service program. Firefighters showed the students a brief PowerPoint presentation on fire prevention and talked to the students about the importance of volunteering as a first responder, and that is required to be a volunteer firefighter. The students helped firefighters wash approximately 230 feet of ground ladders and were allowed to go through the department's confidence course. So, happy anniversary, Chief. We should do something special. You going to have a party? No? Okay. Just wondering. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Memorial Day as well, which is May 30th. We have a great committee, Patriotic Celebration Committee, that is working on the parade. and it's always great to see the parade and then come to Hartley Dodge and watch all the ceremony that's held here. So at 9 o'clock we'll be at Condorcet Way, and everybody here has been invited, and we'd love to see you come and march with us as well. And from there, we'll proceed down Main Street and on to, let me see, where does it go? Forgot. Prospect. And then on to Kings Road. And so anyway, please come. Please come to the ceremony up near Condorcet Way and the top park as well. It's really moving ceremonies, and I think we owe it to the people who are fighting real hard for us right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Affairs, Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you. First of all, the Downtown Development Commission wants to remind everybody, first Thursday in June begins our farmers market. Again, it will be at Central Avenue. It'll be bigger and better than ever, and we will continue to have musical events each week. From the Senior Center, new leadership at the Morris County Nutrition Project, which manages the Meals on Wheels program, has some changes. County case managers will review all new clients to determine eligibility and access to the assistance programs. In most cases, deliveries will begin in 2 weeks, but exceptions will be made when necessary to accommodate early hospital releases and other situations. All volunteers who deliver meals will now be registered with NorwestCap/RSVP and their hours logged to ensure funding guidelines are met. These policies were originally in place and have recently been reinstated. So that is important for anybody who gets Meals on Wheels. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Councilman Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, from the Public Works Department, the downtown flower baskets and art poles have been put up. Next, a total of 105 trees have been planted, and the team continues to work on road cracks and patching. And finally, a second reminder, we're back on twice-a-week garbage pickup. From the construction office, they just want to report that Madison continues to see significant year-over-year growth in both revenue and the number of demolition permits that we've been issuing. And then moving on to Mr. Vogel's report from engineering. From the roads, Mill and Overlay Project, Tilcon invoices have been received and the project is under budget. Final reimbursement request to New Jersey Transportation for the Ridgedale project is being prepared for the amount of $90,000. In terms of road reconstruction, Cefelli has started significant reconstruction progress on Lewanika and Crescent. Several priority sidewalks have been replaced on Fairwood, Greenwood, Hamilton, Maple, and Rosedale. And New Jersey Department of Transportation has authorized Prospect Avenue funds with comments on traffic control and handicap ramps. So there's some things we have to get back to them on. And they're also starting to work on the 2017 road surveys. The streets right now that they're working on are Tracy, Valview, Gibbons, Lathrop, and Park Lane, to be followed by Howell, Locust, Glenwild, and Albright. And finally, concept plans for the county intersection improvements at Lewanika and Woodland are being reviewed. The Water Department, work is continuing on several of the water main replacements that are being done in conjunction with the road reconstruction project. Storm sewers, several have been rebuilt by the DPW, and also we are out looking for proposals for cleaning of the trunk line. Electric, the Well E transformer has been ordered, and signalization preventative maintenance was completed by Gen Electric, and a report has been received. Many locations can be improved with LED prismatic lenses, camera detectors, and updated controllers, but no serious failures to report. And some timing issues that have existed on state and county roads have been addressed. The administration has also been meeting with public service to try to get their work in sync with our road work in sync. As an example, we are currently having them repave Fairview because of the serious reconstruction that they did on that road. And there are still existing road disturbances that will need to be resurfaced before any new work begins. The library paving and restriping was done successfully after the road repaving work that was done there. And they're working on a Hartley Dodge site remediation proposal for the gas tank that used to be out back. And finally, the master plan is being updated with new wetland lines for the letter of interpretation submission to the state. And we're also looking at alternatives for fuel storage. Thank you.
Thank you. There were a couple of comments I intended to make earlier, but I got caught up in reading the oaths and neglected to do that. But let me put them and add them on now, so at least they're part of the record. I wanted to point out that in the police unity tour, we were well represented as a community. 3 of our officers participated: Joseph Longo, Carmine DeCaro, and Anthony Macario. This was a 320-mile trip from here to Washington, D.C. We also had 2 of our residents, Kristen and Mark Fabianski, participate. Just as an aside, I looked up this tour out of curiosity, and there are so many police officers wanting to be on it that not only did they have a backup list, but they refused to take additional names at the point at which I got on it, because there was no way they were going to have all the standbys participate. So it's a very important, popular activity in the world of police. I also wanted to mention that the Madison area YMCA's Rosettes gymnastics team took first place for the 2nd year in a row in the New Jersey YMCA Gymnastics League State Championships, which were held on Sunday, May 15th at the Madison area YMCA. The team placed first in levels 6, 7, and 8. The team is headed to the YMCA National Gymnastics Championships to be held June 28th to July 3rd in Long Beach, California. The Madison area YMCA will be represented in the competition by 66 gymnasts, the largest team that the Madison area YMCA has ever sent to the national competition. And I'll just editorialize that regardless of what happens in California, they're clearly our champions. And it's a terrific thing. Communications and petitions.
Yes, Council President, we have received Council received one email on May 9th from Mary Anzolini of Winding Way inviting the Mayor and Council to the Madison High School Senior Night Baseball game against Livingston, and that was on May 21st.
Thank you. This is first invitation for the public. It's an opportunity to ask questions and make comments on any discussion items on the agenda or resolutions. There will be another invitation for discussion later in the meeting for any other subject. I ask that upon recognition by the chair, the person shall proceed to the lectern and give his or her name and address in an audible tone of voice and print the same on the sheet provided for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to comment? All right, seeing no one, I'll proceed with the agenda. Councilwoman Bailey.
Oh, yes, thank you. I am the liaison to the Planning Board and for the Council, and we discussed and recommended to the Council that we have a slight change in the language of Chapter 195-32-4, Central Business District 1, Central Business 2 Zone Regulations. And all of you have received that change. It's regarding building occupancy and use, change of use. We are just tweaking our ordinance so that if you have these small independent businesses that come in and they have a slight change of use in what was there before, they will not have to provide a parking plan, and they can have food sales as long as it's less than 5% of total establishment revenue and less than 15% of establishment floor area. And so, for example, Crowley Cupcakes has never been able to have any seating. Jungle Juice has a stand-up bar. The new bike store in town likes to sell espresso coffee, but they can't because that's a change of use. Now, under this regulation, We've narrowly defined it so places like that can provide 8 seats for what they are selling. They can't do full-scale meals, but they can do this, small amount of seating which is what the customers want. So the planning board felt that it was a good change. DDC has overwhelmingly supported it, and we would like the council to support it and approve the change.
Okay. I'd just like to add to that the mayor and I were recipients of a letter from the Madison Downtown Development Commission regarding this matter, and I won't read the entire letter, but there are 2 paragraphs that make the case. It goes as follows. The DDC has continually advocated for adjustments to the process such as these that are now proposed to help Madison compete on an even footing with our neighboring downtowns. No one disputes the need for regulation of food establishments, though we think we can all agree that the concern around food handling and fire code safety and not antiquated parking regulations should be the areas of primary concern. We feel that these proposed changes are an indication of the great things that can be accomplished when the Planning Board and the DDC have a strong, proactive working relationship. We believe that strengthening this relationship benefits our Madison business community and the community as a whole. This was signed by Michael Kopass, who's currently the DDC chair, and Russell Stern, who had been the chair preceding. Okay, ordinances for hearing.
Okay. The ordinances scheduled for hearing were introduced by title and passed on a first reading at the regular meeting of the council held on May 9th, 2016. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up these ordinances for a second reading, and I ask the clerk to read said ordinances by title. We're going to do a bit of consolidation as we've done in the past. I'd like to consider Ordinance 40-2016 and Ordinance 42-2016 together.
Ordinance 40, 2016, ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $52,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of a police vehicle. And Ordinance 42, 2016 is ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 34 of the Borough Code entitled Police Department to revise rules and regulations for the promotional process.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
We have to open the hearing. You have to open the hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to open. Are there any comments, questions, concerns about these 2 ordinances? Okay.
Seeing none, close the
Seeing none, I close that portion and ask if there's a motion.
I move Ordinance 40-2016.
Second.
Okay,
Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
And then Ordinance 42-2016.
Wait, you have to.
We already had
Do I have to do them in order?
We had the hearing for both.
Yeah, so then do the next one.
I have to.
You had the hearing for. You already had the hearing for both. So now you're going to call for a roll call on
On
ordinance
42.
42. Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay. Any comments on 42-2016 from the public?
No, she only moved one. She has to move the second one now.
Yeah, she has to move the second one. You've had the hearing on
Okay.
both of them. You just have to move the second one.
Yeah, right. I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've already done the hearing.
All right. And I have a motion on Ordinance 42-2016.
I move Ordinance 42-2016.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
I'd like to now call up Ordinance 41-2016 for a second reading, and I ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $500,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the reconstruction of Prospect Street.
Hearing. Do I have any comments, questions?
You have to call it for a public hearing to the public.
I thought I did that. Okay. I am opening this for a public hearing. Hearing no comments, I move ordinance,
No.
I'd like to hear a motion for ordinance 41-2016.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 41-2016.
My second?
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Excuse me. Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving ahead, let's consider ordinance 43-2016 and ordinance 44-2016 together. Right? Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Hey, I open the,
You have to read them by title?
thank you. Please read
What do we
this
do?
by title. We're doing
43.
I apologize,
43
43 and 44. Ordinance of the Borough 43, 2016 is ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 12 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Water to update the water connection fee schedule. And then 44 is ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 155 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Sewer to update the sewer connection fees.
I open these two ordinances to the public for discussion.
190.
Hearing none,
Mr.
I'll
Mayor,
ask
I
for a
move
motion.
ordinance 43-2016.
A second?
Second.
roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Ms. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay.
And now, Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 44-2016.
Second.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. Now we have the second invitation for discussion. This portion is to ask questions and make comments on any subject. I ask that upon recognition, the person shall proceed to the lectern and give his or her name and address in an audible tone of voice and print the same on the sheet provided for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Okay.
Seeing none? No?
Seeing none, we will proceed to resolution.
Introduction of ordinance.
No, the introduction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll just take
Give me
those
1
one
second,
at a
I'm
time.
short a sheet.
Here.
Is that it? I'll read the
All right, the
statement.
ordinance scheduled for first reading have a hearing date for June 13th, 2016, and will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies. Call up ordinances for the first reading and ask the borough clerk to read said ordinances by title.
Ordinance 45, 2016, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 195 of the Borough Code, Land Development Ordinance regarding changes in building occupancy and use.
I move ordinance 45-2016.
A second.
I did have one question, and it's, I guess, more for Matt. Part of this ordinance says that it's limited to, I think, 5% of sales. Do we have any other ordinances that actually limit the, or limiting in that way? And actually, do we actually really have any way of measuring that, if we're going to include that in an ordinance?
I can't speak as to what the other ordinances, you do have different limits on various things in your ordinances. I don't know about 5% of sales. I think that what the intent of this is that it's, the primary purpose of it is not for,
I understand the purpose, but if you're going to put a specific amount in there,
Yeah.
no one may ever challenge it, but does it create a problem for a business if somebody else says, I think they're doing more than 5% of business through this new ordinance, and now how are we going to arbitrate that dispute?
well, I think that's going to be for your zoning official and to go out when they go out and visit the site to make an assessment. I think people will be able to tell very quickly what somebody's doing, what their primary function is. This is really kind of a tangential function.
Okay.
So I think it'll be enforceable.
Because, I mean, I can see, like, the bicycle shop, because they're selling stuff that costs a lot of money. I'm just worried more about, like, a Crowley's Cupcake, where if you sat there long enough, you might say, well, more than 5% of their business is being consumed on site.
Matt, if I could interject, there's also a second standard in the alternative. It's also less than 15% of the floor area, which probably would be easier for the zoning official to determine the dedicated space for this purpose versus the gross floor area of the store versus they don't have to go look at the sales. They just look at, so if you go to the bike store, you see they have this little counter, which is a small percentage. So it's either or. 5% of sales or 15% of total floor space.
But does either one put you in jeopardy, or as long as you're satisfying
one or the other? It's either.
As long as you're satifying either of them,
it's either 5% or less than 15% of floor area.
That's fine.
And you can't do more than 8 seats.
No, I understand that, but a place like Crowley's Cupcakes, in theory, could do well more than 5% of their business is sit-down business, even with 8 seats, believe it or not. Okay. I'm fine.
Okay. Roll call. Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 46, 2016, ordinance of the Borough of Madison authorizing a capital reserve of $300,000 for the Madison Electric Utility Substations.
I have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 46-2016.
Second.
Discussion? Yes.
So I think I've already stated my opinion about this in the past during the budget session. I don't believe that it's in the best interest of ratepayers to be setting this type of money aside for the next decade or so. So I'll be voting no on this. I believe strongly, and I voted for all our capital ordinances. I just don't think this is the best way for us to spend, if you want to call it that, $3 million worth of ratepayer money for the next decade.
Just out of curiosity, if you don't mind my asking, how would you do it?
If for something this large, I would actually bond for it at the time that it needs to be done, and then I'd let the people who enjoy the use of the upgraded facility for the next, I don't know how long it would take to pay it back. You'd have to decide 10, 20 years, because the useful life once it's upgraded is probably 40 or 50 years. And I just don't feel it's right that you should ask people who live here for the next decade to pay extra money for electricity to cover that, and then you move out of town and you find that you provided for the next resident moving in. I think that those people should pay for that use.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I understand your point, but the subtlety is that nothing's happening to electric rates. It's an allocation of funds.
You could lower the rates by $300,000.
You could,
Yeah.
but you'd have to cut something else out.
No, you just have to cut this out.
Well,
If you're saying you have the money to do this, that means that the money is coming out of the electric utility.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's
You
more
recall.
philosophical and budgeting issue.
No, this came out of a discussion about what was the appropriate amount of capital to allocate, and our outside party consultant came up with this number.
No, and I don't.
It's appropriate, and it was adopted accordingly.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we're going to have to spend the money a decade or so down the road. I just question the way we're going to pay for it. And that's my only concern.
Point well taken.
Another comment. You have another comment.
Oh, sorry, Councilman.
Thank you. Not surprisingly, I share Pat's view on this. I don't think it's just as we, because there actually has been precedent with this council where we decided against spending cash on hand to pay the borough's portion of the turf fields. We instead borrowed for it, and I believe some of the rationale that was used was we didn't want to ask residents today to pay for an asset they may not use in the future. And so again, I'm all for capital, but I don't agree that we should ask current residents to pay higher electric rates to cover repairs that will happen that will be enjoyed by future residents. Just my, and I understand the work has to be done. I wouldn't be against spending whatever it takes to make the repairs. It's just, do we ask people today to save for something they may not enjoy?
Is that actually the case, that we're talking about large capital projects, and that's what this money is for?
Yes.
It is set aside for today. So you've made very good points.
Thank you.
I mean, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was to set aside $300,000 for, I think, the next decade?
It was 10 years, yeah. I think.
Jim will address this.
Thank you, Councilman and Mayor. The Utility Advisory Committee met with a consultant, and that consultant said anywhere from 7 to 10 years the substation is going to need to be repaired. So with a major overhaul, basically refurbished. And it's one half of the substation, so I just kind of want to get that out there that we have substations, and one half of each of the two substations can run the town. So we'll be replacing one half of the substation. We feel as though, and I think Pat quoted 40 years, he's exactly right. We think these substation repairs last 40 years. So the thought process is about every 10 years we're going to be refurbishing a substation. And similar to other reserves that we've set aside, whether it's tax reserves or anything else, we came during the budget process and said that we think putting aside $300,000 a year is the right thing to do. It could happen in 5 years or 6 years. We don't know how quickly the asset will deteriorate. We certainly wouldn't want that where we had no money and then we'd be caught behind the 8 ball. In terms of the concept of whether you borrow or whether you reserve, that's council's decision.
Councilwoman Bailey. Could it possibly be a combination of both, that you would have the reserve, but you're also going to have to bond because it's going to be...
Possibility.
That would happen if the asset were need to be replaced sooner than 10 years. If it need to be replaced in 5 years, we'd do that. So you guys could decide to reserve for 5 years, and then the next 5 years say, okay, we're out of the, let's coast now and see how long we can have the substation last in the next 5 years. Not reserve anything, but you just don't know if that asset, the substation is going to last 5 to 10 years or not.
So then, let's fix it now. If you don't want to lower electric rates, we want to spend $300,000 a year for 10 years, let's just do it. Let's do the work now and bond for 10 years. Let's do it.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to.
Doesn't need
to
But
be
it's going to need to be done, and it could be 4 years, could be 10 years. If we fix it today, it's good for 40 years. The money's there. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't advance work 10 years. I mean,
but we don't know. He just said we don't know. He said it could be 4 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years. We don't know.
No, but I mean, right now, it's in good working order, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the language here does not say we're doing this for any length of time. It's just for the 2016 capital budget supports this expenditure, but we're not talking about, we're going to have to vote on it again next year. Okay.
Two options, either vote on it next year or as in years past, where we've done other reserves, such as the water meter replacement reserve. That's just built into the budget. I present that, and when you vote on the budget, you're voting on making that reserve as well. So there's two ways to do it. Since we didn't have that this year, we needed to do it as a separate vote. It was, yeah, absolutely. And I just repeating what Carmela said, if people couldn't hear that, we had discussed it. It was in part of the $895,000 electric utility capital budget that we presented back in January.
Yes.
Can I just say something? You know, some of these things come out of a lot of work that was done by the strategic planning group. And listen, I sat on the electric strategic planning group. And this was a very important portion that they brought forward. At the time that we finished all of this, the Utility Advisory Committee was told, this is your function, sit down, decide what you're doing. Now, the Utility Advisory Committee is made up of some really very sharp people that have been there for a very long time, some new people, and they're residents of this town. And their decision, along with what's his name? I can't remember.
Kurt Wilson.
Kurt Wilson was that $300,000 be reserved. We saw it in the capital budget. Mm-hmm. We approved it and said, okay, this is good for this year. Nobody expected that James Park substation was going to go down half of it. So, when you start talking about bonding, right now we have enough debt as far as I'm concerned. So, I'm in absolute favor of this. I mean, I sat through Utility Advisory, and I'm sure you have too, Pat, and listened to some of the arguments that were brought up at those committee meetings. So,
thank you.
I think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
So again, if we're concerned about the reliability, James Street substation, let's fix it now. Let's bond for it. let's reduce electric rates, or let's just take this $300,000 in electric rates and use it to pay debt service. We can rejigger it, number one. Number two, as it pertains to I voted against the budget this year. This was one of the reasons. And number three, as it pertains to the money we reserved for the water meters 5 years ago, we raised $1 million. We haven't spent it yet. We're going to maybe spend $40,000 today. Who's to say we were not going to reserve $1.5 million, $3 million, and then not do the work? And it's not fair to ask current residents to fork over that sort of money on a project we may or may not do. And I'm all in favor of, if we're worried about James Street, let's do it right now. Let's fix it. Let's just fix it.
Well,
right?
we're talking about $3 million. That's
Pardon me?
what it would cost to take care of James Court.
So we
$3
have
million.
it then.
So what are we going to do? Bond?
Yeah. And we'll take this $300,000 a year. What's the difference between bonding and doing this? There is no difference.
Putting us in debt.
There's no difference but we have the cash flow.
No, there were two things that come to mind. I mean, one is this is philosophical argument about what, as a citizen, you pay for, right? So do you pay for things you use, or do you pay for things that, in a sense, define your community? My children are long past the age that they would be public school students in Madison, and in fact, we moved here at a point in which they were already involved in different schools, unfortunately. And so every year I pay my portion of taxes for the Board of Ed, and it goes to buildings that I never use and my children will never use. And I don't mind, because part of what makes this community is the fact that we have a school system, and a quality school system, and it takes money. The issue as to whether we should fund the school system in a similar way, I mean, we can talk about that for a long time. But I think there are these things called public goods. And public goods would, to me, include electricity, that, we can, the merits of whether we keep the tax at the current rate or issue debt and have our citizens pay the interest on that debt. I realize there's a magnitude difference, but they're still paying for this something that, in the way you put it, they won't potentially ever use. So that's one part of it. The other part was that I was coming at this whole discussion from a different direction, because when the Strategic Planning Committee on Utilities gave their recommendations, they were recommending as much as $1.5 million a year in capital. So when I heard $300,000, I thought, that's I'll take that.
But it's not actual capital spend, it's a reserve.
It's a reserve.
Right, number one. Number two, we don't follow, and this year's budget was a great example of it, all the recommendations of the Strategic Planning Committee. So just because the Strategic Planning Committee said we should do it, again, there is precedent not to follow their recommendations.
I wouldn't argue that.
And I'm a big proponent of, let's just fix it. If we want to spend $300,000 a year, then let's spend $300,000 a year, but let's actually do the project so that we don't run into the same issue we ran into with the water meters, where we raise this money and we're still kind of deciding whether or not we're going to actually spend it. I mean, let's fix James, if that's an issue, let's fix it.
Okay. I assume we all realize that $300,000 a year, if you were to apply it entirely to electric rates, would result in a reduction of approximately 1.2%, a little more, just as an FYI. I mean, that's the magnitude of the reduction. It still begs the principle. I understand that, but the magnitude is worth considering as well.
Well, I mean, it's going to be $300,000 in addition to whatever else you're going to recommend at the end of the year. You said at the end of the year you're going to recommend, based on what the surplus is, that there'll be a rebate to ratepayers.
Yes.
So this would subtract $300,000 from that.
Correct. Okay. But I'm just saying that this.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. The impact of it is a 1.2%. Can't go too many digits.
It's kind of a slippery slope, because every time we talk about, the average house, it's only this many, it's only $25, it's only $31, it's only 1.2%. By the time you're done adding all that up, it's like, you're working in a high tax jurisdiction where, you've only got this, but the social tax is this, and the value added tax is that, and before you know it, you're at 85%. I'm not saying, but so I think it's easy to say, it's only this much. But when you take all the times that the various taxing entities, be it the county, the Board of Ed, or the municipality, says it's only this much for the average household, and you add them up and you compile them over 10 years, it's quite a lot of money.
I appreciate that.
Right.
I would add to that, though, that if
$3 million over the next decade.
If you went ahead and issued debt today of $3 million at current market rates, I think you'd want to adjust your number by what that would cost you. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's not an insignificant amount of money. Okay, as long as we understand. So it gets down. I mean, I understand the philosophical issue. It's hard to resolve. There's, on the one side, the issue of what comprises public property, and the other side is, how do you pay for it, and who pays for it? And I appreciate the distinction. I feel more comfortable in one direction. I think this gets down to, I won't say emotional, but the monetary difference is really slight, especially after I'm trying to do the bond math on $2 million, $3 million.
Well, it's 3% a year. I mean, it's
well, it's more than
right?
that.
I mean,
It'll be more.
That's assuming you're going to bond today.
Right.
I'm saying over the next 10 years, you're taking $3 million from ratepayers. Who pays for it and when they pay for it.
Yeah. So actually, if I just look at simple interest in a very simple way, right, the $300 a year comes down to a $150 difference, more or less, right? So it's. And I understand the slippery slope argument. I don't think we have a lot of these sitting out there, but we could. We could. And there has been an agreement by the various committees, and again, they're not binding, it's just suggestions, that we do more reserving for capital expenditures. And they were talking about expenditures starting in the range of $500,000 to $600,000. And it would be the same deal. You'd be putting money aside today for something that you may not need for 5 or 6 years. And again, the magnitude of that would be slight, but as you said, and I don't disagree, I mean, it's a step in a direction you may not want to go.
Thank you.
Roll call. Okay.
Are we ready to vote? Okay. Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
No.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
No.
Ordinance 47, 2016, ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $40,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of utility meters, handheld reading devices, and accessories.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 47-2016.
Second.
Discussion? Yes.
So I'm going to support this, but I have expressed my concern both to Mr. Burnett directly and in the utility committee. I really think at this point we should have a better idea as a council of how we're going to be replacing our meters, both the water and electric. I mean, we did reserve already $1 million for them. We talked about this last year. I thought by March we were going to get a better plan than let's buy some meters now and see how they work out. I understand we're still going to have a trial run over the next year or so, but I would really like in the next month or so, maybe 3 weeks before we come back, to get a better sense of how the administration, and in particular, I guess the water and electric utility teams would want to roll these out over the next several years. I think there's tremendous advantages for this community, for this council, by implementing a lot of this sooner rather than later. And I just don't feel comfortable. I mean, in my business, I couldn't go to my boss and ask for $1 million for a project without a very specific plan of how I would spend it and when I would spend it and when I would be done. And this is almost $100,000 we're spending. And it's, again, against the $1 million that we've got reserved already, plus money that's going to be coming out of the electric utility. I would just like to see a better plan than we currently have.
Jim, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, yeah. In talking with water utility foreman and electric utility superintendent, the goal of this is to be a test run, and how quickly we ramp up will be determined by a lot of factors. Really, most importantly, how is it working? Is it working properly? What's the install like? This satisfies a lot of different things. It's most importantly going to allow us to immediately start to gather interval data on our top 50 to top 100 electric utility customers. That's very valuable. It's very important information for us to have, because we really can't come to the council and say we want time of use or we want seasonal rates until we understand that consumption pattern. As you know, it represents almost 50% of revenue from the electric utility, those top 100 customers. This gives us that. It gives us a handheld device, getting away from the book and the pencil and the paper, which really is more than enough, more than past due to get rid of that. That will make efficiencies in finance and ultimately efficiencies in meter reading. And then thirdly, this particular technology can easily grow and become the automated metering. The meters that we would be buying here, we'd be buying a significant number of electric utility and water utility meters and metering information. We've actually been holding off on buying water meters and electric meters because we wanted to make sure what we're buying was all going to coordinate and work. So a large portion of these will be meters that we'll be deploying right away. So we'll be able to test and immediately find out what's working. And then from there, yeah, we come back to council and say, you know, it's working really well. We're going to do a test and do an entire section and actually launch the automated metering infrastructure at that point with collectors. But we really wanted to make sure that it was working properly and only spend $80,000 before we committed spending $3 million.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I'm going to continue to support this, because I think it's long overdue. I was surprised, though, when we sat and listened to the presentation from the Elster people about the handheld. It helps us tremendously on the administrative side when it comes back in. On the meter reading side, it probably didn't do as much as I'd hoped it would do, because it still requires the person to know where they are and what they're doing and what meter they're about to read, as opposed to they had a drive-by system where it had a GPS built in and it would automatically wake up the meters, because that's an integral part of how it works. So it made me even want more to be able to move to automated metering quickly, because I think that we'll get some bang for the buck, but not until we go to a more fully automated system. But again, I still think as a council, as a community, I would really like to see someone put to paper, you know, how long is this going to take to implement? And we, you know, between the company that's looking to sell us these meters, and I think they mentioned South River and a couple other communities have already implemented them, to, you know, pick their brains and find out what they've done, how quickly they've moved. There are people out there who have experience. I don't think we need to build this from the ground up. I think we could hijack somebody else's plan. But I think we should create a plan. We should create a goal for ourselves, much like we did with strategic planning. You know, when would we like to see this get done?
No. Okay, so I apologize, but I'm a little confused. So is the goal to have one meter that reads electric and water, or separate meters?
No, it's separate modules, Rob. So there's going to be an electric meter, and that runs off the electricity. Then there's a module that connects to any of our existing Neptune water meters, and it's a communication module with a wire. So there are two different things.
And the cost, so the cost of the module is the same as the cost of the meter?
Depends on the type of the meter, size of the meter. The module costs, I believe, about $100. Meters can be $130, or they can be more expensive. If it's a demand meter that's going to go on one of our top 50 customers, that's maybe a $230 meter. So I will say this too. I apologize that I don't have the actual quote. We're in the process of refining it. I'll be presenting that to council in memo format between now and the next council meeting, and then I'll actually give a short presentation to the public explaining what this technology can do.
And who installs this?
Right now, installation would occur by our internal staff. And Tom DiBiase has signed off on it, understands it, okay, 2 wires, understand exactly how it would connect, where it would need to connect, how it would work. Same with the electric meter, Michael.
So we're going to be buying about 400 water meters and 285 electric.
No, there's other
400 water modules and 280 electric.
No, there's the handheld devices. There's a software and technology that's involved in that. There's the implementation.
Right, but you don't need one handheld for each meter, obviously.
What's
you need
that?
one handheld for each reader.
We're debating
each
whether we
model.
have 2 or 3 or even 4 because they each meter reader would need a handheld, and then it would be nice if the department had a handheld because when they go out and install a new automated meter, they need to put it into the system using the handheld. Only takes a few minutes, so we're just deciding whether we're going to go with 2 or 3 handhelds right off the bat.
Thank you.
The comment I wanted to add was that I got interested in this at the outset when we went to look at these meters in practice in other locations, and I went along with Jim to a couple of these, and I came away liking the technology, seeing the value of it, and wondering how much it would actually save Madison. It was critical to the operations in places that had large geographic dispersion of their residents. But given the tightness of the borough, I was a little concerned. So I had asked early on that we do some kind of cost-benefit analysis, and it's become clear over time that the best way to do it is to spend a little money, learn from the experience, and then go forward. I would hope that if this is successful, and indeed we can justify it cost-wise, that we would implement as quickly as possible.
I thought they'd already done a cost analysis because between the additional revenue we generate from fixing some of the older meters and the automation savings on the reading side and some of the administrative work, I thought we had kind of justified this already. I mean, yes, it'd be nice to see a more detailed proposal, and technically we probably should have seen that before we approved any money. But I think in the end, it may not maybe save us as much as we think. It may allow us to just redeploy resources to different areas because, we constantly hear that some of our departments are understaffed, and right now we probably have more people working on the administrative side of the utilities than we would have to if we could more fully automate both the...
It's not a lot of people.
But it's still, we still have a couple people reading and a couple people collecting envelopes, stuffing envelopes, and there's a lot of physical work that goes on.
I have no argument. It's just that I've seen these systems in other applications where they look great. People tell you how wonderful they are. You move them in and you ask, couldn't I have this? And they say, that's very expensive to put on. And that's all. So I think it's worth doing kind of, walking a little bit before we run, as it were.
No, I don't have a problem doing a pilot to kind of prove the concept, but I would like to see what the end goal is, regardless. We should have that by now.
We should have that. I agree. I have no problems with that.
Can I, are you finished? Okay.
Sorry.
After spending 2 years with utilities, spent a lot of time looking at these presentations and whatever, and also realizing, once you spend some time as a liaison and you're really into exactly how things are working, you find out that and it's one of the reasons that we put this $1 million away just for water, because it's always been a problem here. We can't go in and read pits, right? Big situation. We don't know how much water is running through those and whatever. There's enough of them in this town that it could create an influx of revenue. And I am absolutely convinced that once we get just the water done, it's going to make a tremendous difference, okay? And putting it on the top users is going to be key. I'd like to see them put on the top users as well as right in the pits, because I think that that's a very important situation. I'm pleased that we're finally moving forward. It's taken us a lot of years. I agree with that. And but this is only the beginning. We'll be spending that $1 million like it's going to be gone. That's my opinion.
Wait, can I hold you to whatever? Is that 1 year, 5 years, 10 years?
That's how we're going to spend it. Okay. So I am so thrilled at this point that we're finally making some kind of effort to move forward. You have men who are not used to this kind of thing. You have meter readers that are going to have to learn how to do handheld. You've got to give everything a chance. And, you know, one of the things that I talk about all the time is baby steps. This is a baby step. So, you know, I'm just thrilled that, you know, Tom and Jim understand the whole process and understand how they're going to attach the module. I mean, you know, it's absolutely phenomenal how all of this is going to happen. But, you know, we will spend that $1 million, so don't worry about it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Any further comments? I think this has been helpful. I found it helpful.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
48, 2016, ordinance the Borough of Madison appropriating $40,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for the purchase of utility meters, handheld reading devices, and accessories.
Mr. Mayor, I move ordinance 48-2016.
Second.
Discussion? I don't see it as very different from
No, it's
what
not
we just
different.
talked about.
It's
So
a different
Ditto.
just say ditto and
Different word.
move
Okay.
on.
All right.
Okay, roll call vote.
Okay. Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolutions 169 through 174?
76, we had two,
176, I'm sorry, yes. Second.
engineering intern and the violations clerk.
Just a second.
Okay.
I second. Thanks, Pat.
I don't want to discuss this, but I just want to make one note. We're 171, we're authorizing a payment for $900 and almost $40,000. That's actually returning about $70,000, I believe, Ray, to the borough as excess money that was authorized under that ordinance. That'll be going back into the capital fund.
Good. Thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes to Resolution 169. I will abstain on, which one is this here? On 174, and yes to 176.
And no one.
Did I say that right? 169
No, you didn't.
to 173, abstain 174, and yes to 176.
Okay.
175, you mean?
No,
And 76.
I don't have.
5 and 76.
This is the one that,
You're abstaining from 174, the easement.
yes.
But we now have 175 added, which was the unpaid intern.
And 176.
And 176, sorry.
All right, is everybody ready? I'm going to do this one more time.
I've got it.
You got it.
I've got it.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
I'm going to say yes to Resolution 169.
Got it.
173. I'm going to abstain from 174, and yes to 175 and 176. Okay?
Okay. Miss Bailey?
Is that good, Pat?
I'm voting yes to all.
Okay. Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
And Mr. Rowe?
Yes to all.
Okay. Any unfinished business? Not that I know of. Okay. Approval of vouchers.
Okay. Public safety, $14,275.91. Health and public assistance, $1,483.48. Public works and engineering, $159,304.76. Community affairs, $15,223.53. Finance and borough clerk, $60,090,337.19. And utilities, $979,366.06. The total is $7,259,990.93.
Council President Wolkowitz, I move the vouchers.
Second.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes. And with that, I move we close.
Any new business?
No new
I
business.
didn't think so, but I have to.
Done.
All right. Thank you all.
Wonderful.
Good job, Ben.
Tonight.
Wait, Ben.
You
Wait,
did
sit
great.
there for a second, hang on.
Take a picture?
You gotta smile.
Take a picture.
smiling.
That's why you can say to your grandkids, look, I was mayor.
There you go.
I see.
You can do weddings tonight. anyway.
It's like,
There you go, you're good. I'll send it to you.
thank you, sir.
That's my other job.